Hello, welcome back, YouTube. It's great to see you. You always make my day a better day. Today we're going to do the fifth part, I believe. Yeah, part 5 of the Industries DLC tutorial. This one's going to be focused on expanding. So the last one we talked about, I think, just like the mathematics, the optimizing of it. So it's, I think the first one was just in general, the supply chain, how it works, all the different parts, how they all work together. The second one was more or less, where do you want to put it? So it kind of makes sense. And third one was, how to build it, how to start it. So we went from that to that to that. And then the fourth one was, all right, now that you have like an industry DLC kind of down and getting ready to go, how do you optimize it? And then, okay, well now we got this maybe at this stage of the game, you got an industries DLC going. It's running pretty smoothly. So how do you expand it and kind of max it out? Maybe you go ahead and run your unique factories at 150%. Like all the ones I have here in this map are either a 125 or 150. So, which is why I have 444 million, and I haven't finished 9 tiles. So let's go through some of that. It's going to be the last one was pretty math heavy because obviously we're optimizing, so you need to know the math behind it to actually optimize it. So hopefully you like math. If not, hopefully it was easy enough to review and digest and make sense to you. And of course, as always, build your city the way you want to build it. This is just a way to do it, the optimal way, or say most efficient way, but not necessarily always going for that. Sometimes you're going for a look. So you might use certain assets just to achieve what you want to achieve there too. But just but some of these principles and tips might work well as well in those types of builds. So step 5, expanding or leveling up your DLC. So let's talk about leveling up. So you need to hit a certain number of folks, right, to get to the next star, 5 stars. You need to get to 800, I believe. I think this is the main building. So you come into here, go into the info tab, and it'll tell you how many on the top left. It tells you how many workers you have and how many, what's your capacity, right? And then of course on the right where it says level 5, it'll tell you, you need to meet 2 conditions. You need to produce a certain amount of stuff, which is easy. You just let it run, and it does that automatically. And hit a certain worker count. And I found the best way to do that. So you can level these things up in like 20 minutes, maybe 15, maybe 30, depending on kind of where your city's at the start. But the fastest way to level these things up is, one, before you even start, drive up your unemployment. Drive it up to 10+%. That way people are looking, they're hungry for work. So then they'll go to places all over the world, all over your city to fill jobs. So you want to maintain a high unemployment rate, basically, to drive up and to force people to take these jobs. I have found, in my experience, this is on PlayStation 4, which is probably similar to Xbox because it's console, and it could be different on PC. You guys have mods on PC that could maybe help you do certain things or remedy some of the game mechanics that may be perceived as flaws or not. That, if left unchecked, we'll say, or uninfluenced, the industry DLC typically will fill about 75% of the jobs. It never, in my experience, wants to fill all of them, unless you drive unemployment up really high. So if you have like the normal, we'll say 4 to 6% unemployment, which is what I recommend you always have in your city to have a healthy city. If you're at that, unemployment, and this thing says maybe it needs 500 people to get to level 4 or whatever it is, it won't, and then you put down enough things to get to 500, you won't get to 500. It'd be interesting to see places comment below like, yeah, I've gotten to 500 before. It takes 400 years, but I've gotten there. Because they just don't fill up. They'll fill up to like 400 and like 20 people, and then it will just not be full until you drive up unemployment, and then people will come in, and then they'll try and take those jobs. But I've never seen, it's very rare, I'll say, I've seen it actually hit the max. What you need to do, what I would recommend you do, is when you get to about level, I want to say it's level 3, you start getting like the maintenance buildings and stuff, like the barracks, put a bunch of those down. If you're trying to push your industry to level it up to get to 5 stars, what you do is first two levels, you just kind of run it smoothly, optimally, however you want to run it until you get to level 3. At that point where you start getting the barracks, and then I think the next one you get like the maintenance buildings. It's usually the barracks is the better one because it's a smaller footprint. Start to spamming barracks. They're cheap. They don't cost much money. You usually at that point you're making a ton of money anyway, so it doesn't matter. And you want to jack up the number of employees. So if you want to hit 500, you want to have like 800 available jobs, we'll say. If you want to hit 800, you want to have like 1,200 available jobs. And you're going to have a whole bunch of these things all over the place. Farmer Works Barracks, so all down here, all down here. And that'll create, of course, add more assets like the extractors and the processors and storage as you need to as you're expanding. So that'll, take up some or provide some jobs. So what I'm saying is usually if you're running a tight ship, so to speak, that's not going to be enough. You start putting these down, it provides space for people to come in, and then the game, like I said, it'll want to fill in about 70% of that space. But then that 70% becomes the 100% you need, right? So if you put down 1,200 or 1,100, jobs, openings, so to speak, then they'll fill like 800. So that's one trick to do to get it up real fast. Just make a ton of jobs available in the DLC in that area. And I would recommend you do it one at a time. It's just easier to do it one at a time because then you can blow them up when you get to 800 and you hit level 5. Then just blow them up and keep one or two, or how many none, how many you need. Because once you hit 5, it's not like a campus. Once you hit 5, you're good. You can blow up your whole entire industry if you want. You'll still keep the main building. It'll still be level 5, I suppose. I've never tried that, but I think that's how it would work. So that's one thing. The second thing is you could, before I had this area, I actually had rows in here, and I just crammed in. You can drop in a, if you want to put an elementary school, you can. Whatever, it doesn't matter. If you want to put in like the small, health clinic, the small police station, the small fire, house or station or whatever one is, the smaller ones. Throw them in. Get your 3 services in. You'll put a crematorium or something in there too for death care. You can put that in, and then just build yourself like a little town in here. Say, in an area that's close to your DLC. You can just cram it full of a bunch of high density. It doesn't matter. Try not to make them sick because then it just clogs up the road with all these ambulances and stuff. But go ahead and cram in a bunch of people. And once again, you put a bunch of people in the same area as your industry while keeping them far enough away so they're not like dying because they're on polluted soil. Then that drives up the unemployment. So this just goes back to the unemployment. That'll drive your unemployment up because now you're just cramming a bunch of high density stuff in. You don't have to fill in the whole thing of like 5 blocks. You can do 1 or 2 blocks at a time. Let it fill up. Let your let the farming level up, say, to 5. Destroy some of the extra stuff you put down to get that extra space in terms of employment numbers. And then say you're going to do the oil next. Throw down a couple, some people will leave. They'll go out of unemployment because you blew up some of those buildings, right? So now you should drive up unemployment a little bit. Put some more of these guys down, these barracks. Just plop them all down. Drive up the numbers, the space, available workspace in the oil industry. And then if you find that people aren't filling in enough, go ahead and zone like another 2 blocks or whatever. And then those people will come in and they'll take those jobs. Boom, it'll hit the next level. So on and so forth. And then you can unlock some tiles because that's going to, of course, drive up your population. You'll unlock your tiles. And by the time you hit level 5 for all 4 industries, you'll have yourself a little town here of high density. And then you can just move it. You can just start dezoning a block at a time. And then if you have if that drove the next milestone, open up another tile, open that tile up, build out your roads to how you want to build your city, and go ahead and just relocate the people. Dezone a block, make a block over there. Dezone a block, make a block over there. Just do it in steps, and then you'll, just like I did here, and then go ahead and fill it with some unique warehouses or something. And these are the original assets, the original services for that. So, yeah, so that's how you level it up quickly. Drive up the available jobs, especially at 800. It's the 800 one is the hard one I found to hit the most. Make like 1,200 available jobs, and then just cram a bunch of people in that area, and you don't care about them. Not to say we don't care about people, but they're temporary workers. It's like building temporary housing for a big, huge construction project, right? Out in the middle of nowhere. Excuse me. And then that'll once again drive up the unemployment, it'll force people to take those jobs, and you'll level up quickly. Then the only constraint at that point will be the amount of resources that you're making. Which, if you do it kind of like, I don't want to say the right way, because there's no real right way. I mean, there is kind of a better, good way to do it. But if you're doing it kind of like in a progressive manner, we'll say, the people will fill in as you're producing, so you'll hit those levels. They'll kind of be close. You might just hit the total resources you need to produce to hit that next star. And then shortly after, you'll hit, say, 500 people, and then you'll flop over to level 4. And then the resources will build up. You'll start zoning some more. People will move in, and you'll start putting some things down. And by the time you kind of get everything set up, you'll be really close to hitting maybe you'll hit like 810, 850 people working there, and then you'll be like really close to hitting your top resource numbers. Okay, so that's how you can level these things up in like 20 minutes. All right, and I would recommend you do that. If you want to get a 5-star industry, you probably want to have about you want to start at around 40,000 people, maybe 30. You can go as low as 30, because you need a lot of people. You need almost 1,000 workers in here, and you already have like offices and commercial and other industry that you're building. So a lot of jobs are already being, a lot of people are already working, right? So you don't want to do this obviously when you have like 5,000 people. Because it's just, I mean, maybe you could if you just started early enough, but obviously you wouldn't do it when you had like a population of 2 and you need 800 in here, because like everyone's gonna be working at the farm, right? And it might unbalance your city in other places. So I find right around that 40,000 mark. So you maybe have 4 tiles unlocked at that point, maybe 6. Or maybe you're working on the 6th or 7th. I don't know. I forget depends on the map, of course, the milestones. And then, like I said, by the time you get from 40 to like maybe 60, or 50, you'll have leveled up all 4 to 5-star. And it's probably about appropriate in terms of like, okay, we can start putting down some more unique factories. We can start consuming. You're going to start exporting some. We're going to get that in a second. But you don't want to build a 5-star, farm for a 2,000 population city, because they're not going to consume. Your city's not big enough to consume what you're producing, right? You want to kind of build up your industry with your city. Well, and then know to add more storage. Okay, and there's also want to know to add more stuff, really in general. So once you get your industries going, you really need to check 2 things, not constantly, but occasionally. Alright, man, see you later, gamer. I'm also on Twitch at noobbuildscities. So I'm answering the chat if I just randomly start talking to people. My good buddy gamer here, he's off the bed. It's like 4:30 in the morning probably. Take care, enjoy the new laptop, man. You can send me some more videos of you doing crazy stuff. Appreciate it. Alright, back to the DLC. So there's 2 things you need to look at. Like I said, not constantly, but you want to monitor for occasionally. And that's your storage units and your warehouses. Everything else is kind of like, they can do whatever they're going to do. As long as you're building it, somewhat, I don't want to say right, but you build it efficiently, effectively. If you follow the other parts of the tutorial, you will have really no or very, very few icons pop up, and then they'll be remedied pretty quickly. So you don't have to worry about like the processors and extractors in your factories, because they'll be doing their thing. They'll be humming along, singing a song, kumbaya. Storage. You want to check your storage units and just look to see, are any of them getting really full, or are any of them getting a little empty? You start with 1. So when to know to go from 1 storage unit to 2. If you look at a storage unit and you see it fluctuating pretty wildly, so it goes, instead of operating between 40 and 60, you start seeing it drop below 40 and going above 60. So it's kind of having a hard, and then this takes like practice and kind of experience just to know, looking at the number of trucks that are out there, and then some of it's like feels, you gotta get a feel for things. You'll see, okay, I'm seeing a large variation or volatility, within my crops. So to smooth that out, what you can do because now you've added more and more extractors, more and more processors, but you haven't added more storage. You start seeing large fluctuations in your storage, because what's happening is your storage unit can only hold so much, right? So if you add like 2 more extractors, then trucks are bringing stuff and it's going to jump up faster. And then of course the extractors are going to ask for the material, then it's going to start dropping down quicker. So like I said, you're going to see these wide variations in the percentages of full. At that point, you want to enter your second storage unit. And that'll help smoothing it out, because now they have 2 sources to take it from. So now the amount of extractors that you have is enough to kind of like supply the 2 storage units. And then maybe one will be kind of volatile, the other one will kind of go somewhat unused, and then they'll kind of switch back and forth, just because the game's the game, and that's just what it does. Like I said, maybe on PC you can have a mod for that, which is nice. But then, like I said, it could do that, or they might drain them relatively evenly, so you might see them come down slowly, kind of build back up slowly, and that's what you kind of want. You want these things to be between that 40 and 60, and using half the trucks or less. This one is actually, this is like danger. We have 8 of 12 trucks, and we're at 80%. But at the same time, I'm looking and I see this one's got 2 of 12, and this one's got, it's at 48 and 2 of 12. So these 2 ones are fine. This one's exporting. I guarantee it. This one's exporting. These 2 are probably enough to supply all the pastures and, the flour mills, which is fine. And then, of course, it might switch. He might eventually become one like this, and then this one might be exporting, just because the game just does goofy things like that. So that's how you know when you need no store. Same thing with the warehouses. Just check your warehouses from time to time. As you add more processors, as you add more industry. Because remember, the industry itself, the regular generic industry, I mentioned this in a couple of the other tutorial videos, consumes raw resource as well as processed goods. So they're going to eat away at like your supply, at both your storage at the actual site as well as your warehouses off-site, so to speak. So you just want to check these and look, okay, are they between 40 and 60? Because they're usually set to balance. And how many trucks are being used? 8 out of 30 is good. And we're right at 60. That's perfect. You can actually export a little, so you could be like in the 70s, which is fine, because you can export, I said, just a little bit if you want. Just make sure you're not using 30 out of 30 trucks, because that could be a danger, a sign of meltdown coming soon. It means you're overproducing, and if this warehouse fills up and it goes into full export mode, you're going to be in trouble, because it's not going to make any deliveries locally. So keep an eye on the number of trucks. Once it gets to like 20, maybe 25, I would say 20. When it gets a little more than half, you want to say, well, what are we doing? What's going on with my processing? Maybe it's time to zone some more industry anyway. So then you can look at like your map here and say, okay, well, I'm importing a little bit of purple, right? On the far right, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of the pie chart. So it's time. This city could use probably, 8 units, we'll say. If I look at that and I see that, I would probably zone, not like a whole block, maybe half a block. Maybe like something like this would be enough to like bring that back to where I'm no longer importing, right? Maybe slightly exporting. And then those buildings would then consume some of these products, and so far and so forth. So that's why you got to like kind of babysit everything, because when you make more of this, it consumes more of these. When you do more commercial, you need more of this, right? You need more generic industry when you make more commercial. If you ramp these up past 100%, you're going to, of course, need more resource. So then you're going to, consume more of this as well. So just keep that in mind. I said check. This one's a little low, but it's got a lot of trucks out, so a lot of people are using the timber. But it's still within, it's at 50%, so it's actually just in the middle. This one's fine. That's a unique one. That should always be close to 0. Like I said, you just look at the number of trucks. Okay, everything's looking good. We're less than half, and we're between 40 and 60. Hey, welcome back, gamer. I thought you went to sleep. My man. Okay, going beyond 100%. That is my next little tip here. So how to know when to go beyond 100%. And this also depends on how well your infrastructure is on export, because you can push these a little bit more. You just got to be careful, because you don't want to get into the spot where the warehouse is using all the trucks, and the trucks are driving all over the place, and they can't come back fast enough to empty the warehouse, and the warehouse gets full. And then whatever the thing was who was sending the stuff to the warehouse, basically your processors don't have places to put the stuff, and then they don't have enough buyers. So that's when you get the not enough buyer symbol. The next one I think we're gonna go over all the symbols, why you get them, how to get out of it, all that stuff. This will be part 6. So, like I said, you got to be careful when you're ramping up, that you don't over ramp, we'll say, or you have good connections to the outside world so that you can export this stuff and get, so then the trucks from the warehouse, so to speak, can come to here, deliver the thing, they can get on the rail, and then they can just go back. So really the truck is only driving from here to here. It's not driving from here all the way off the map to some place, right? Or driving, through here down into here to go to like this one, getting in line to get to this one to send, right? We got a train station right in our Industries DLC area, right by the warehouses, so that we can, and it's connected to internal and also can go export. So they have plenty of access. The train lines are running smooth. For unique warehouses, for unique buildings, let me say it again. For the unique factories, usually you set the unit to empty, because you don't want to store any of this. You just want to check to make sure that you're not accumulating too much. I mean, what's too much? I don't know, 5%, 10%, halfway to 20%. You want to make sure you're not accumulating too much, and you also want to make sure that the trucks being used aren't at 30. When you see, if you have a warehouse set to empty and you see 30 of 30 trucks being used and you're starting to climb in percentages, you're kind of getting into a bad spot. It takes a little while to break, but what's going to happen is it's just going to keep filling and filling and filling because you're using all the trucks, so they can't get out ahead, they can't empty it out fast enough, and eventually it'll just fill up all the way, and then that's when your unique factories will then give you the not enough buyer sign. It's because your unique factory product warehouse is full, and you don't want that. So you always just check to see how many trucks are being used, and it's below 10% is probably good. I try to keep it below 4 or 5%. As you expand your city, you have more and more commercial, you'll be able to ramp up your factories quite a bit. All these factories are at 125 to 150%, and as you can see, both warehouses don't have that many trucks being used. They don't have any trucks being used at this moment. And they're all at 1%. Because I have enough commercial, a huge amount of commercial all the way down there, that can consume, goes on the rail. They come, they produce their thing, they take it to the train station takes it all the way down to commercial areas. But if I had these factories at 125 or 150% with 50,000 people instead of 100,000 people and half the tiles, well, then these warehouses will be getting full pretty quick. And once again, they'll fill up. What will happen is these will fill up. So then the factories themselves, the trucks that the factories use, the 3 out of 10 that these guys are using, won't have a place to go. You'll force them, because these ones will be all exporting. And we'll get more into this. I guess we're kind of getting into this now too much. So I'll have to repeat this in the next part. These will be all exporting. So they won't be, so then this will be full. So these trucks can't go here. So then they have to bypass this and go directly to something. They have to go export, and then they drive around all over the world, and then they don't come back fast enough. Then they fill up, and you're stuck. So that's how you want to check your unique factories. Check the warehouses, see how many trucks they're using, what percent they're using. If they're not using, if they're in the case that I'm in right now, right? I have 1% and no trucks being used on both. And I have 2. This is the only warehouse I have 2 of. The rest just has the 1 medium. I mean, and that helps with the trucks, because I'm trying to export more unique factory products. I could ramp these up even more, but when you ramp them up, I would say do it slowly. So this one's like, say, at 125, move it to 130, 135. There's probably a dozen of these factories maybe total. So do like 4, do like 6. Oh, good. Okay, I got you, gamer. Very nice, very nice. Laptop and into bed. That's the most comfortable way to laptop, I'll say. Yeah, just do a couple. See how it goes. Let it run. Go build some stuff out in your city. Zone some things. fix your transit, whatever, your traffic, come back a half hour later in real life, you know, whatever game days that is, and then check again. Are you good? You know, are you using, you know, maybe 5-10 trucks here? If you are, and everything seems to be working good, then check your storage units, check your warehouses, and check your storage, because once again, as you increase these, just like as you increase your industry, you're sucking up more and more processed and raw material to make things. Come check your storage units. You may find that you put up, you know, 6 out of the 12 or whatever factories, you moved them up 10 or 15%, and the ones you happen to pick at random used a lot of crops, and now your crops are down. So now you need to go ahead and throw in another crop, right? And then you might find that, well, you know, now I only have 2 storage units and they're moving around a lot, but now I need to add my 3rd storage unit, or now I need to add my 4th storage unit. And usually I'll tell you this much, probably 4 small storage units can, on each industry, so, you know, the forestry or all that stuff, can supply, or is enough, we'll say, to run 150%. All your unique buildings at 150%, unique factory buildings. And I have the numbers for the amount of small resources you need, but I think it's close to like 20, we'll say. It's not the same for each one, but it's pretty close, which is why I have some turned off in this city, because I haven't gotten there yet. I think we covered when to upgrade your store, or when to increase your storage, checking your warehouses, knowing where they should be, and once again, if the warehouses are starting to get low, then you add another processor. And of course, it's a supply chain, so that affects. Then you let the processor run for a little while. You check the storage unit of that area. So if we needed more plastic, say the plastic warehouse over here is getting too, you know, we looked at it and it was at like 40 or 30, you know, something like that. We say, oh, we need more plastic. We throw down another plastic, you know, the naphtha plant, right? And then once you throw that down, it needs more resource. So then you let that run for, you know, 10, 15, 20 minutes of real lifetime if you're on like 2 or 3 speed. Then check your storage. Did you start draining your storage? And you might find, oh, you know, all my storage units are down to like 50 or 40. Because now, you know, you added that extra plant. So, okay, well then let me add another extractor. So then you add your extractor, let it extract for a little bit, and see if your storage starts coming up and things are starting to rebalance again. It's just a balancing game. When you change one thing, you got to look at the whole supply chain, which makes why this is the most complicated. I would say gives people the most headache is the industry's DLC, but it's also, I guess, the most rewarding once it's running right. It's running good. It's making you tons of money, 444 million. You know. Okay, so now that we're expanding our industry and we're trying to actually possibly overproduce. It's not necessarily a bad thing to overproduce if you kind of do it, you know, carefully, we'll say. Where do you want to overproduce is the question. And look at your stuff. So as you're looking, you know, you can use like some of these overlays here, right? So the outside connection one is pretty good. And you can see, okay, I'm exporting here, I'm exporting here, I'm exporting here and here, right? I'm exporting here. So I have extra raw material in a couple of my areas. I have a little bit extra processed materials. So where is the best place? Or we'll say most profitable. Doesn't necessarily have to be the best, but most profitable place to actually overproduce. I did some numbers. Once again, this is, if you've been following me all along, you know math is the thing here. You kind of look at, I just looked at the ore, but it applies to all 3 the same. The numbers are slightly different, but applies the same. So to over export on raw material for, say, the ore industry, it's $240. I'm making $240. This is how you read these. So it gives you the total, how much you're making and where you are in the process, and that's fine. But at the bottom of each like long rectangle box, it says, like, you know, where it says ore, it says 80 tons, $240. So I'm basically making $240 by exporting 80 tons per week. And if you do the math behind that, you're making $3 per ton. But then if you look at like glass and metal, I'm overproducing 240, or I'm producing 240 tons at 400 hours, and 400 at, I don't know what the number is, 9,000, we'll say. It's hard to read from where I'm sitting. And then if you do that math, you're making $22.50 per ton. So it's better if we had to export something. If our ore industry was, say, a little out of balance and we were making more ore than we're consuming, right, and we're exporting ore, it's actually better for us to say, okay, let's not do that. Let's go ahead and put down another metal plant, or another grinding mill, or another fiberglass plant, or even the small one, because we're making more. Because it's better to convert that ore that we're exporting into processed goods and export the processed good, because we're making $22.50 a ton on exporting processed goods, we'll say, versus $3 a ton exporting raw material. Hope that makes sense. So that's what I should do. I should say, okay, let me put down another processor, because my storage is exporting, and start chipping away at that. And get that back in balance, and start, like I said, processing more, and then to send that off to the world to make more money doing that. Same thing goes here. I'm exporting here and here, right? That's what we said. Yeah, so we're exporting some plain timber, and we're exporting some plastic. Now it's better to export unique factory products. So when you look at the math behind that, unique factories are $100 a ton. Is how much money you make on a unique factory. So in this scenario, I'd say, okay, I want to look at maybe my unique factories and see which ones use timber, plain timber, and plastic, and maybe I can just bump that one up like 5 or 10%, and start sucking some more of these out, so that these stop exporting, and I stop making $22 a ton, and then I make, whatever that may be. We'll say it's toys. I make more toys, and now I'm making $100 a ton, so I'm making a little bit more tonnage of toys, and I'm making a little bit more money a week. If you're overproducing, the place to overproduce is your unique factory. Then, from that point, your processors, and then at the last straw, so to speak, is your actual raw resource. You don't make that much money, if any money at all, on your raw resource. You make a pretty good amount of money on your processors, but it's like almost 10 times more than the raw, and then you make another like 4 or 5 times more, depending on the industry, producing a unique product than exporting processed goods. So I hope that makes some sense. And of course, it's a supply chain, so that affects. Then you let the processor run for a little while. You check the storage unit of that area. So if we needed more plastic, say the plastic warehouse over here is getting too, we looked at it and it was at like 40 or 30, something like that. We say, oh, we need more plastic. We throw down another plastic, the naphtha plant, right? And then once you throw that down, it needs more resource. So then you let that run for 10, 15, 20 minutes of real lifetime if you're on like 2 or 3 speed. And check your storage. Did you start draining your storage? And you might find, all my storage units are down to like 50 or 40. Because now you added that extra plant. So okay, well then let me add another extractor. So then you add your extractor, let it extract for a little bit, and see if your storage starts coming up, and then things are starting to rebalance again. And it's just a balancing game. When you change one thing, you got to look at the whole supply chain, which makes why this is the most complicated. I would say gives people the most headache is the industry's DLC, but it's also, I guess, the most rewarding once it's running right. It's running good. It's making you tons of money, 444 million, and everything's good by yeah. So I guess that's enough for this one. Of course, post questions down below in the comments. And of course, if I find some questions that keep coming, I'll just reshoot the video, and we'll add that information in. Thank you for watching. Take care and have a good day. And as always, happy building.